Afternoon. How are you today? I hope you're having a great day. Well, today we're here to talk to you about how to express ourselves in the workplace. It's not easy, but communication and relationships in the workplace are extremely important, and that's what we're all about. So, what we like to do is work with individuals who have whatever concern it is and trying to make that happen where we can minimize some of the stress that goes along with it. Because when we're in the workplace, it's a place where we want to put our best foot forward. We want to make the best impression. We always want to make it look like we're competent and we're in control. And for the most part, we are. Every so often, there's one person in that workplace that really bugs the heck out of you. And we've all been there. We've all seen it. And I have had my series of positions over the years where I know there's always that one individual that just rubs you the wrong way. And it's important that you understand how to set your boundaries and not let other people walk into your boundaries or walk over your boundaries or disregard your boundaries. So let's take a look at how we can do that. One of the things is that every workplace has their own social mores. There's the climate in a building is always different, and I've consulted to so many different buildings, and you can describe the climate so differently. You see such a difference when you go from building to building, consulting with different people. So yes, a lot of it comes from the top down, but when it does come from the top down, there's not a whole lot you're going to do about it unless you're one of the tops. Okay, so let's work on it together. And I can name companies, but I won't. Raising the ratio of sales that each individual is responsible for. So let's say you had a good year this year selling. Well, next year, guess what? You just upped your quota. So now your quota is going up and the stress builds. Okay. And unfortunately, if other colleagues are a little bit more ambitious or a little bit more aggressive and uncaring, they're going to step all over in your territory. And those are things that happen all the time. So whether you're in the office or out in the road selling, or you're in the office doing the backup work and administration, we are career driven in America. We're very much a work nation, and we very much tie our identity into our success in our career. So it is what it is, and that's just the lay of the land. Okay, it's not like Italy or Europe where we can go take a 2-hour siesta in the middle of the day. We just don't, it's not an American style. Okay, unfortunately. So now the part is here that the workplace is also constantly changing because of technology, number one, because of processes, because of incoming administration that changes, management changes. Those are things that are very stressful. And then the next thing is the power stressors within each department. You have to deal with every level of echelon. When you're in the line, so to speak, if in the field, in the line, you're the ones who have to account to maybe a middle manager. A middle manager also has to account and help, or should help and encourage and coach and foster motivation in their subordinates. But the middle manager also has to answer to the top manager, okay? Everybody has somebody they're accountable for. The top manager is also going to be accountable because your CEO or your leader is now accountable to all the people that have a stake in the company, all the shareholders, all the subordinate managers. And when you're in high positions, there's always somebody else who wants to take your place. So they're more than ready to step in when you least expect it. So you have to stay on your toes. And that's just the reality of the workplace. Okay, so what do we do with all these stressors that are coming down? The climate, the ever-changing technology, the competitive coworkers. These are all things that we always need to take a look at. Number one, the first thing we ever do when we start with a workplace is go for that job interview, okay? You succeeded, you graduated college. That in itself is a whole nother story. We'll talk about that someday. But you succeeded college, you graduated, got your degree, now you're out looking for your jobs, okay? And good luck to you because it's a very competitive market. The more extra skills or additive skills you can offer, the higher your chances are for going into the receiving or getting the job that you try out for. So number one, you want to prepare as much as possible, but that first job interview is where you need to speak up and ask for what you want because you won't get a second chance. So for instance, if they offer you a medium salary that you're not happy with, but yet you take it because you want the job so bad and you don't maybe make a second bid or maybe offer something else to raise your salary, you're going to resent it down the line. And then you become demoralized when you find out, oh gosh, John Joe just interviewed and he just took 10% higher salary than I did. How come? And that's because he probably asked for it. Okay, so don't underestimate your worth. And again, with a job interview, you're preparing, I assume. So you can go to a job market, you can go to the employment companies and kind of run your thoughts through someone else who may have similar experience as to how you should approach that first interview. But you want to speak with confidence. You want to play devil's advocate before the interview, kind of rehearse all different scenarios in your mind. And by all means, it helps to research the company itself. And so you have the background and know what they're looking for. Remember, you're there to help the company. You're not there to just help yourself to a job. Of course, that's why you're going for a job, but that's not supposed to be your first premise in putting it forward. Everybody knows you need a job because that's why jobs are jobs, and that's why we go. But the job interview, you want to impress the interviewer with your skills and how you can help that company or that agency, organization, whatever it may be. Okay, so one of the things you need to do is some homework. You need to do a little research and look at your company's climate. And you can do this by researching on the internet. You know, are they growing? Are they suffering? Are they laying off people or hiring? Obviously, if they're hiring you, they're not laying off everybody, but maybe they're downsizing certain parts of the company. So you need to take a look at that. Okay, so if you feel that the climate is one of downsizing, you may want to reassess. If you've heard that the company is very nonchalant, and you hear this a lot in the high-tech companies, they're very nonchalant. For instance, Google would let people, walk out at times when they need to. There's very peaceful work settings to work in areas like that. So when you're on campus of these different companies, it could be very relaxing. But don't ever underestimate that. You need to produce. And so production calls for a lot of insight and a lot of talent. So remember that when you're going for this interview, speak up, understand the climate so that you understand what's going to be expected of you as well, so that you can present yourself in that light. Okay, the third thing you want to do is revisit your own personal boundaries. What is it that you do or do not want to tolerate in a workplace? For instance, if someone tells you, well, our company requires 90% travel time, and you're like, oh gosh, I just had a brand new baby, I'm not going to do this, I just got married, I'm a newlywed, I can't leave all the time. These are things you need to weigh up for yourself ahead of time. And it doesn't mean it's a job killer. It just means that you may not work or fit in that particular line. And I would be very upfront and honest with the person who's interviewing you as to what it is that you expect as well. 90% of the time when you travel, you're traveling on your own time after hours, and many companies still expect you to be alert and ready for the job at 9 o'clock in the morning, be at your desk. So if that's too much for you, speak up about it and say, I'm concerned about the travel. Because if you get in a job that's going to demand you to do those things, you're not going to be happy anyway. And by taking it so quickly because you just needed a job, you may miss out on a better one that was about to come around. So you need to evaluate that for yourself. Okay, so communicating, if you're shy, if you're not used to speaking up for yourself, you better start rehearsing, because take your sister, your brother, your mother, your father, anybody in the family, and start rehearsing and see what they think. They may not be the most objective because mom and dad are going to love everything you do, most likely. Okay, so try to communicate up front. Do not be a shy presenter. People lose patience with people who are like, well, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Let me get back to you. It's a very fast-moving world today, and so we don't have time for a lot of that. So get yourself together ahead of time and know what your boundaries are within that job setting, okay? Now, by all means, fourth area where I'd like to encourage you is to at all times act professional, okay? That means even if you're upset, even if you have concern, even if somebody hurts your feelings, by all means, do not make a public display in the workplace, okay? If you're going to cry, go into the bathroom. Go close your door. Go to your office. Make sure nobody sees you. Let it out, and then recompose yourself and go back out into the main workplace, because you don't want everybody discussing you, and of course you don't want to make a spectacle of yourself. So even if you're upset, don't show it in the workplace, because our first reaction is not necessarily our true reaction. We maybe hurt at first, and then we go home and think about it and say, you know what, I really did mess up that job. Yeah, okay, I better do a better job from here on in. But now you just cried in front of the workplace, and now the people are upset. One of the most confusing areas for people is this 360-degree feedback, because you get to also evaluate your boss, and he gets to evaluate you. What likely is you're not going to want to say anything too nasty either, because that's going to come back on you by some other action that's going to be relayed in the workplace. So that 360-degree feedback in the workplace, as far as employee evaluations and manager evaluations, aren't necessarily easy for people, because you have to speak up about things that you may not like. So the important thing is to understand how to say something in a positive light, even if it has could have a negative meaning, okay? We don't want to be too blunt. You want to be able to act professional at all times. If you're really, really upset and you have to express something, and I had one person who was upset about a particular comment a boss made, really, really upset, and went into the bathroom and had her little pout, which is the right way to do it. If you're going to get upset, don't let everybody see you, because you don't want to be on show. And that's not really you 90% of the time. You're fine. So just kind of keep those feelings under wraps. I think we all get our feelings hurt somewhere in the workplace sometime. So be careful about that. Now, the next thing to do is watch who delegates to other people and try to learn from them. So for instance, if you feel your boundaries are being invaded by other workers who say, oh, by the way, can you type this for me? I'm really, really busy. I don't have time. And Mr. So-and-so needs it tonight by 5 o'clock, be on his desk, okay? And then they run off, and you're so quiet, they caught you by surprise. You're like, oh gosh, I got my own work to do, so now what am I going to do? That is somebody you need to be very clear about your boundary. It's not just your boss communications that you need to be worried about. It's also coworker communications. There are people who are takers. There are people who are givers. If you're a people pleaser, that's fine. That means you're very sweet, but at the same time in the workplace, there's plenty of people who will take advantage of that. So if you feel that's happening to you, then by all means, express yourself accordingly. And here's a little tip. If, for instance, it really bothers you, but you're really too timid to speak up, make a little sign for yourself and put it in your workplace, in your station. So the next time somebody says, I really need you to do this for me, you just pick up the sign and say, sorry, too busy. Sorry, I'm busy. And so those are things that you can do. It's kind of comical. It's a way of lightening up the conversation and keeping the tone warm, rather comical. Now, if you've been doing this for a while and you've had other people kind of dump on you, and you know how it is, you say yes once, and then the next thing you know, it's 2 and 3 and 4 times. So those are things that you want to be careful of with your boundaries. Number 6, is it feasible to say no? Is it even possible to say no? Am I going to get fired the minute I say no? Those are all natural thoughts. And so those are things that you can role play with a third party who's objective to discuss the pros and cons of how you are considering responding, okay? Now, here's another thing. If you've been delegated too much, if other people have invaded your boundaries and you've taken on too much, reassess your workload, okay? That's the next thing, number 7. Reassess the workload that you have and see if you can have downtime. Sometimes we really are exhausted and you really need to take a mental health day, which, and it's a personal day, but if you can take a personal work day, and recollect yourself. You go into the office much differently, and you'll probably have a different perspective about all the things that bothered you. Okay. Sometimes we need to get distance from the problem in order to resolve it. So if you're overwhelmed and you need a mental health day and too many people are asking you too many things and delegating to you, by all means, take the downtime. But the next step would be, advice would be, number 8 would be to use technical aids to help you more. A calendar, apps that you can use, headphones to keep the noise in the office out and kind of ward off people from coming to you. Don't be too open and too available to people. Keep your headphones on so that you're typing and if you're dictating and you're being busy. So you kind of avoid being too available for people. So keep your technical aids up and use every one of them that can possibly help you. And so today we have so many things like Google Drive that you can definitely tap into from anywhere that you are. You also have apps that'll let your team communicate. And if you can't speak up, then by all means, send a message to a team member and say, oh, here, John, this is yours now. You do it. So that's a way for communicate, but without having to do a face-to-face confrontation. Expect resistance from others, and they may get upset. So the person in the office may say, oh my gosh, I can't believe you won't help me. And then you need to be a little firm and you need to stick to your guns and be prepared for that resistance. So there's a whole nother set of dialogue you can rehearse for people like that. And you don't know when it's going to hit you because 9 out of 10 times, most of us are busy. We go about our work and then all of a sudden someone comes in with another task. Like, oh, I want you to do this. I want you to do this for me. Like, oh, sorry, I got plenty of my own to do. So how about that? Resistance. Okay, that's not a happy thought in the end if you're struggling to speak up in the first place. But I promise you this, it all takes rehearsal, rehearsal, rehearsal. Nobody goes from point A to point Z without stopping in between to catch their breath and realign their skills. So that's what we're going to do. We have these 10 steps. The last step is to relax and just keep plugging and keep, if you can, set of trusted colleagues. They don't have to be in that same office. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because you want to be careful who you be take into your confidence because not all people are going to be there for you all the time, especially in the workplace. I've seen people run into problems and boy, everybody goes and hide. Nobody wants to get involved. So be careful who you speak to about your feelings about it and try to keep it objective on the outside. Or, of course, always hire the professional for a consultation. And believe me, there's a million issues that individuals can consult on. And so it's really important that you understand the dynamics of a relationship. There's give and take, communication, there's bravery, there's confidence, there's shyness, there's being withdrawn. So wherever you fit on the spectrum, whether you consider yourself a very outgoing and aggressive person, you may need to tone it down a little. So you may need to taper down a little bit. Let's face it, it's very pressurous out there. We're all high-paced, fast-paced. Most companies want you to do work, and you have a productivity level that you're expected to maintain. So when you're working on that level, you really need to be aware of your own boundaries, where they are, how you can smooth them out, and how you can best express them to others, and how can you make this a win-win situation. So that's the bottom line. You want to make it a win-win where you get effectively in charge of your own job tasks and nobody else's, and you also want to keep everybody happy and maintain them as a working colleague. So that's a little tightrope to walk. But if you follow these 10 steps, as I said, be careful right from the job interview, assess your workplace climate, revisit your own personal boundaries. Where are they? Have you established them? Or do you need to? Act professional at all times in the workplace. And then observe others and see who's delegating and who's give and take and how do they do that. And then you need to practice on how to say no. No, thank you. I'm so busy. No, thank you. I can't make that after-hour party tonight. No, thank you. I'm going home to the family. No, thank you. My job load is overloaded now. And we all had a friend that you kind of know who's going to try to take advantage of you. And then you kind of back off and be prepared ahead of time as soon as you see them coming at you. And yes, you do have to set up your boundaries. And as I said, if you're too shy to speak, take a card, get an index card, say, sorry, not today, and see if that doesn't work. And it really does. It really does. And it's kind of comical. So it kind of takes the edge off of it, of the conversation. Okay. But do expect resistance. And in the final analysis, it's important for you to go forward, project yourself in a confident, professional manner, and don't get flustered, or at least don't show that you're flustered. Okay? You can go kick the cat when you go home, but in the workplace, you want to try to be as congenial as possible and still handle all these situations. Okay, sound good? All right. Well, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please, by all means, subscribe to my YouTube as well, my channel. And you can also download, if you email me, we'll send you the 10 list of how to invoke and establish your own boundaries. And we wish you so much luck in the workplace. It's a slippery slope, as they say, as you go through your career path for everyone. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Everybody has their monsters to fight, or their dinosaurs to ward off, or their interruptions that throw them from time to time. Okay? So if you ever get stuck, I'm available. You can call me for private coaching. But in the meantime, I think you've got enough tips here to help you get started. Email me at Felicia@FeliciaFerrara.com. I'll be happy to send you our printout on how exactly to set up your boundaries and defend them in the workplace. Okay? All right. May you always walk in light. Thank you.